All right, guys. Week 3 of the preseason, the Friday night game. It's now 2 days in our rearview mirror. So let's go ahead and break it down. It's the most important of the 4 preseason games. And if you're a Seahawks fan like me, you came out of that game feeling really, really good. For the most part, you didn't get everything you wanted, but you got almost everything you wanted, I think. So let's go ahead and break it down. If there's any preseason game we should really talk about, it's this one. First off, the big positive you take out of this one, no injuries of any kind in that game for our team. And after last week, that was very welcome. The game itself, not injury-free. Spencer Ware looks like he's going to miss the season. The latest in a series of catastrophic preseason injuries to significant players. Spencer Ware, Julian Edelman, these guys were going to be big-time players this year. I'll maybe one day in the future I'll talk more about how I feel about preseason football, but the situation we have right now is we have 4 games and we just got out of one of them with no injuries of any kind to any player on this team. So that is a big win right there. That's more important than everything else. But other things that are important. First team offense scored 5 times, I believe, in their stint on the field. Might have been 4, but I think they punted once, and other than that, they were putting up points every time they got the ball, which, look, you would prefer touchdowns over field goals, but we moved the ball, we made plays, different players got involved at significantly high levels, and all we need is to clean things up a little bit in the red zone, and everything's going to be fine. I just like the fact that we're moving the ball, that the offensive line is holding up, that the interior of our offensive line seems strong, that we're getting some promising signs from our tackles, and everything will just stem from there. And those field goals, give it a few weeks. You hope they turn into touchdowns. But at the same time, this defense is one of the best defenses in football. They can win when their offense is scoring field goals. So I'm just happy that we're able to move the ball consistently. Russell Wilson had a really good game. He threw one pass that should have been picked off. Stupid pass. Maybe there was one other dumb pass in there too that should have been picked off. But other than that, he was clean. He made a crazy throw down the sideline to Jermaine Kearse. He had a nice downfield throw to Doug Baldwin. He was hitting Chris Carson down the field. Just, good game. Good game by Russell. And you've seen all you need to see from him if you're me. His preseason numbers have been sufficiently crazy. Chris Carson and Eddie Lacy were the 2 starting running backs. Both those guys showed up. Chris Carson made a big catch down the field. He's a fluid receiver out of the backfield. Eddie Lacy didn't get as much action as I thought he would because this team likes Chris Carson so much, but Lacy played fine. And it's going to be really interesting to see what this team ends up doing at running back, but that's a pretty good 1-2 punch if that's what it ends up being, because you can't trust CJ Prosise and Thomas Rawls with shit right now. You can't. They get hurt way too much. Chris Carson, Eddie Lacy, if that's your 1-2 punch, you can go with it. Those guys can play. Eddie Lacy, only thing is, it seems like I haven't seen a good carry from Eddie Lacy yet in short yardage. I've seen good short yardage carries from Chris Carson, from Mike Davis, from J.D. McKissick, but I don't know why Eddie Lacy is struggling in those short yardage situations, but it seems like he is. So that's all good. Doug Baldwin made one big catch down the field. He actually made 2 big catches in this game, 2 20-yard catches. He looks ready to pick up where he was last year. And Jermaine Kearse, I was frustrated with him last year. I think we all were. But if he just stops getting the ball in the red zone, his season last year would have been fine. If he had just not been targeted in the red zone and those targets had gone to Jimmy Graham or Doug Baldwin or even Luke Wilson or Nick Vannett, then everything would have been fine. So I'm not ruling out Jermaine Kearse having a much better season for us this year. And so far this preseason, you got to say he's done his job. So keep an eye on that. He's not going to be forgotten in this offense yet. And Jimmy Graham, we saw him out there really for the first time this preseason. He had one big catch that helped set up a chip shot field goal right before the half. We know what he can do. We don't really need to see him out there much more than what we did see him out there on. And but the big takeaway offensively, offensive line. Like I said, Britt was graded as our best player on offense in this game. So you didn't really notice him if you were watching this game quickly, but Britt was on point. Luke Yokel is really good at guard, it seems like. And that is a strong foundation. And Glowinski seems like he's okay. Odiombo, shout out to that guy. He played good. Wasn't perfect, but he played good out there. And I was not optimistic about Reese Odiombo before Friday night, but after Friday night, I've securely shifted into the give him a chance camp because he played good against the Chiefs. And honestly, I think he looked better than George Fant did last year. And George Fant was going to improve this year, I know. Odiombo's not going to be as good as George Fant was, but he can be better than, Odiombo is not going to be as good as George Fant was going to be, but he can be better than what George Fant was last year. And we beat the Patriots and won a playoff game with George Fant last year. So, I'm on board for the moment. And Ifedi has taken a huge jump from week 1 of the preseason. Ifedi actually looked decent out there. So this offensive line, despite the George Fant injury, is coming together, and I haven't even mentioned Ethan Posick yet. Wonderful news. You just hope it carries over. And all I can say is this. Our offensive line got the shit kicked out of it the last couple preseasons. So this is all welcome sights. Starting defense, they do what they always do. They give up long drives. They give up some third down conversions. They give up underneath stuff, but they don't let their opponent get in the end zone. Kansas City's offense scored 6 points this whole game. I think 3 points by their starting offense. And after that first scoring drive where Kansas City looked legitimately really good, they punted a few times. They couldn't get anything going down the field. Alex Smith couldn't complete a pass over the last quarter of the game, I want to say. Frank Clark came up with his first sack of the preseason. I think maybe this was the first game he played all preseason. Tackling, little sloppy on that first drive, but it cleared up after that. Cassius Marsh played a monster game out there, actually, which is great news because of the defensive line concerns that we have right now on this team. Shaquille Griffin, he got picked on a little bit on that first drive, but he's coming around, and I don't hate what I'm seeing from him at all. Tremaine Brock got in there. He forced a fumble late in the game. I'm really, really excited at the bang for the buck that we might get from Tremaine Brock this year with our main defense, not even as an injury replacement. So yeah, starters, almost everything good. Blair Walsh made a couple more field goals. I know I'm going to look stupid for this later, but right now I am on team Blair Walsh because he's getting his kicks up high. Those kicks ain't getting blocked. And that is what I could not deal with anymore after last year. We did have a punt blocked, which you don't like to see. It worked out for us, but you still don't like to see it. I don't really know whose fault that was. We did give up a kick return touchdown, which you hate to see, but DeAnthony Thomas, he's a dynamic kick return threat. So giving up a kick return touchdown to that dude, I'm not going to sweat it too much. So those are the starters. What else can you want from these guys? What starter would you say you were disappointed in after this game? Reserves, quarterback competition heated back up. Austin Davis played great. Hit Tanner McAvoy for a big touchdown. Made some other plays. And Trevon Boykin did not throw a single catchable pass. Limited opportunities. I get it, but suddenly the door seems open again. Not only to Austin Davis, but Colin Kaepernick, maybe. I don't know. So I want to move on from that. That's kind of depressing because Austin Davis, Trevon Boykin, whoever your backup is. It's not pretty. But there were plenty of reserves that showed up in this game. J.D. McKissick, we thought he was just going to be our special teams kickoff and punt returner. He might be a dynamic offensive threat, and I don't know if we have room on this offense for another running back, but he might be a versatile weapon out of the backfield. And if Thomas Rawls and CJ Prosise never get healthy this year or get hurt again, it's nice to know a dude like that's on your roster. Like I said, Tanner McAvoy. We have too many passable wide receivers on this team, as weird as thing as that is to say. Kason Williams, Tanner McAvoy, some of these guys, one of these guys is going to be off the roster, and it sucks. Kenny Lawler, even. He caught that touchdown against San Diego in week 1. It's just too bad one of these guys is going to just have to go because we need the room. So, Alex Collins, I don't think he even played last night, so that's a really bad sign for him. He's not going to be here when the season starts, it looks like. There's just no point to it. Reserves on defense, David Bass played a great game. Nazir Jones made some plays out there. Let's see here. Like I said, Jerron Reed, I saw him make some good plays out there. It's just a collection of some pretty interesting pieces, but I don't know who's going to really be there at the end. Like, I keep talking about replacing Malik McDowell's snaps this year, and I'm looking at Quentin Jefferson, and I'm looking at Nazir Jones, and I don't know who it's going to be yet. Obviously, this game was more about the starters than the backups, but I still want to give shout out to some of the reserves that showed up in this game. Like I said, David Bass has actually had a really good preseason, and I know preseason backup defensive ends doesn't mean as much. I wonder if there's room on this roster for him, though. So, that pretty much covers what I took away from this game. Really happy with pretty much all the starters. If you want to, again, you're nitpicking at a certain point. Like, the special teams could have been cleaner. There were a lot of penalties in this game. As it turned out, by the end of the game, I think Kansas City had more penalties than the Seahawks. And some of that was a little frustrating, and I could get on a couple guys for some of the penalties, but we had a few roughing the passer penalties that were... I'm not worried about that. Bobby Wagner bumps Alex Smith at the end of the play. I think Cassius Marsh bumped somebody at the end of a play. It wasn't anything that bad, but it got called, and I'm not going to get mad at any of the players for it. So, other than the penalties and this couple of the special teams plays, everything I wanted. And I'm ready for this last preseason game to be done with. And right now, I'm thinking, 12-win, 13-win this year. That's where I am right now. That's how good this game had me feeling in terms of seeing what I wanted to see. So, I'll probably make a video right before the Oakland game on Friday. There are some interesting things to watch for, but in terms of what is immediately relevant to this team, I think we saw most of it tonight, or 2 nights ago. See you guys later.